You do not lose your life in one dramatic moment. You lose it in fragments, in the tiny reactions you never question, in the habits that feel harmless, in the decisions that seem too small to matter. That is how most people fall behind, not because they are weak in some obvious way, but because they leak power every single day without noticing where it is going. A little distraction in the morning, a little negativity in your speech, a little emotional reaction to something small, a little money wasted to feel better for an hour, a little loss of focus, a little loss of control. And by the time the day is over, they feel drained, scattered, unfocused. Then they call it stress, bad luck, a hard season. But the truth is harder than that. They did not just lose energy, they gave it away. This is why most people stay average. They think their biggest problem is external, a difficult boss, not enough opportunities, the wrong environment. But the real problem begins much earlier than that. It begins the moment they wake up and let the world touch their mind before they have chosen their own direction. Before their feet hit the floor, they are already consuming noise, messages, comparisons, anxiety, opinions from people who have no right to sit in the center of their life. And then they wonder why their mind feels crowded by morning. If you do not control your mind, you do not control your life. It is that simple. And most people lose that control through 4 quiet forces every day: their mouth, their mood, their money, and their mind. The first is your mouth. Most people think speech is harmless. They think words are just descriptions of what they feel. But words are not neutral. Every sentence is reinforcement. Every repeated phrase is an instruction to your mind. When you constantly say you are tired, overwhelmed, unlucky, stuck, behind, your brain listens. It starts organizing your behavior around weakness, because weakness is the command it keeps hearing. This is why careless speech is so destructive. Complaining feels small. Excuses feel reasonable. Gossip feels normal. But each one trains your mind toward negativity, passivity, and low standards. A person who constantly speaks about what is unfair begins seeing unfairness everywhere. A person who constantly explains why they cannot act stops looking for ways they can. Strong people understand something most never learn. Silence is discipline. The less you speak uselessly, the less energy you waste. The more intentional your words become, the more powerful your presence becomes. Stop narrating your weakness. Stop announcing every plan before it has substance. Stop using your mouth as a leak in your own foundation. Your words should build your mind, not sabotage it. The second force is your mood. This is where many people quietly lose the day before it even begins. They wake up and ask how they feel. If they feel motivated, they work. If they feel heavy, they hesitate. If they feel uncertain, they delay. Their life becomes a servant of emotional weather. But feelings are unstable. They rise and fall without permission. If your behavior changes every time your mood changes, then your life has no center. Professionals understand this. They do not wait for the right feeling. They move by standard. They do what must be done, whether the emotional condition is convenient or not. That is why they keep advancing while others keep restarting. Your emotions are real, but they are not your ruler. Anger, fear, insecurity, frustration, they are signals, not commands. The moment you learn to pause before obeying them, you create the first layer of power. Someone criticizes you, you do not collapse. Something goes wrong, you do not spiral. A delay appears. You do not let your mood write the story of the day. This is how calm becomes an advantage, not by suppressing emotion, but by refusing to let it decide everything. The third force is your money. Money reveals your mind faster than almost anything else. Because money is stored life, stored effort, stored time, and the way you handle it shows whether you are driven by impulse or direction. Most people do not destroy their future with one catastrophic purchase. They do it through emotional spending, repeated often enough to become normal. They spend to feel relief, to feel status, to escape boredom, to calm anxiety. The object is rarely the point, the feeling is. This is why undisciplined money habits are not really about money. They are about emotional regulation. If every difficult day ends in spending, you are training yourself to exchange your future for short-term comfort. That creates a quiet trap. You feel better briefly, then weaker later. Financial instability grows, pressure increases, your decisions become more desperate. But once you control your money, something deeper changes. You stop spending automatically. You ask whether each choice strengthens your future or weakens it. You begin building breathing room, savings, structure, stability. And with stability comes something most people deeply crave but rarely build: independence. The ability to think clearly because you are no longer reacting from desperation. The fourth force is your mind itself. This is the battlefield behind everything else. Your attention has become one of the most hunted resources on earth. Every app, every notification, every endless scroll is designed to fracture your focus. And a fractured mind cannot build a strong life. It can stay busy, it can stay stimulated, but it can't go deep. Depth is where progress lives. The person who can sit with one demanding task without running toward distraction has an enormous advantage now. Because deep concentration has become rare. Most people can barely stay with difficulty for a few minutes before seeking stimulation. Their mind has been trained to escape effort. That is why they feel exhausted without creating much. Their attention is constantly moving, but never landing long enough to build anything powerful. To train your mind, you must reclaim your attention. Fewer inputs, longer periods of concentration, more deliberate thinking, less noise. At first, this feels uncomfortable because your brain has grown used to interruption. But that discomfort is not failure, it is retraining. Every time you refuse distraction and return to the task, you strengthen the muscle that will eventually separate you from most people. Then comes the real shift: identity. You can improve habits for a while without changing your identity. But eventually your identity always wins. If you still see yourself as reactive, distracted, financially careless, emotionally inconsistent, then sooner or later your behavior will return there. So the deeper work is this: stop seeing yourself as someone who is pushed around by life. See yourself as someone who chooses, someone who leads themselves, someone who can pause, someone who does not obey every urge, someone who creates internal order before demanding external success. That is when everything starts changing for real. Because once identity shifts, the habits stop feeling forced. Discipline no longer feels like punishment. Focus no longer feels unnatural. Emotional control no longer feels like suppression. It becomes who you are. And this is where most people miss the truth. Winning in every situation does not mean everything goes your way. It means every situation becomes usable. A setback becomes training. Criticism becomes data. Financial pressure becomes a lesson in structure. Emotional discomfort becomes a test of mastery. You stop asking whether the situation is easy and start asking whether you are meeting it correctly. That is what mental victory really is. Not domination over the world, domination over your leaks, over your mouth, over your mood, over your money, over your mind. Give this 6 months, and your life will not look the same. Not because of some miracle, but because small, disciplined decisions compound faster than most people understand. 6 months of cleaner speech, 6 months of emotional control, 6 months of deliberate spending, 6 months of protected focus, 6 months of refusing to hand yourself away in fragments. That is enough to become unrecognizable. So train your mind, not for comfort, for command. Because the person who controls these 4 forces does not just survive life better. They start winning in every situation.